Okay, so this tutorial will walk you through the basics of using Goobric, Doctopus, and Google Classroom in order to provide very quick rubric scores to students on their work and their writing. And this is working within Google Classroom. So just very quickly, a couple of things before we get into it. There's a lot of things that we can do to make this very customized, but this is just the basics. And in order for you to use it, there's a couple of things that I need you to know. One of them is making sure that you have the extension for Goobric. If you don't know how to get that extension, you just go to the Chrome Web Store, search for Goobric, and make sure you have it up here. It looks like that little eyeball. That's one thing. And the other thing is that you need to get Doctopus. And so I'll show you how to get that in just a second if you don't already know. And I've got this assignment, so I've got my students, their work has been submitted, and it doesn't even matter if their work has been submitted, but I'm ready to give them some feedback in the form of a rubric with some comments that I can provide them. And in order to do that, the very first thing that I need to do is to create a rubric. And your rubric can be anything that you use. It just has to follow these two criteria. Row 1 has to have the numerical values. Those numerical values can vary depending on what it is you're actually scoring. And then column A has to be the category names. And so within those cells that kind of fall in here, you can put some descriptors as to what a 3, 2, or a 1 is, or 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, whatever your scale is for your rubric. So you've got to create that. So now you've got your students' work that's been either in progress or turned in. You've got your rubric. You're now going to create a brand new Google Sheet. And creating that Google Sheet, if you have multiple classes, you will have to make multiple sheets. You can't have several classes sharing a sheet within Goobric and Doctopus. And so right now my sheet is completely blank. I'll give it a title. I usually would call it like the name of the assignment, and maybe give it a descriptor so I know which class it's from. And from here, we're going to click on add-ons, and then we're going to click on Doctopus. If you do not have Doctopus yet, you're going to go to Get Add-ons and do a very quick search for Doctopus. It's actually right here. And then you're going to go ahead and click on Add, and it will walk you through a series of permissions that you just have to click on Accept or Allow. And so if you do have it, or when you have it, you're going to click Add-ons, Doctopus, and Launch. And you'll notice within Doctopus, that it does take a little bit of time to really pull in the information that you're asking it to pull in. So depending on how big your class is, depending on how many documents you have, sometimes the patience is needed. It doesn't usually take more than a minute, but just be aware that if it is taking a long time, that's not necessarily out of the norm. So we'll just wait for a minute for this to get to work. So as you can see here, the Doctopus has opened up a thing on the sidebar. And if you see these yellow messages, it's like, hey, just so you know, you can click on more and then dismiss. Don't show again. I'll just click on dismiss for now. And then it's asking, how do you want to pull in your documents to this spreadsheet? We're going to click on ingest from Google Classroom. And there's other ways that you can pull documents in, like by having them in a specific folder. But the easiest way with Classroom is for you to just pull it in from there. And again, here we have our spinning wheel, and it might take a little while. I've got a whole bunch of classes, so it might take a little bit longer than usual, but we'll just patiently wait for a second. And so now it's asking me to select my class, and I'll pick my class. And again, it's going to say, in the next one, it's going to say, hey, pick your assignment. I have one assignment in here, so that was really quick. And after that, it is going to give me the option to ingest or pull in only completed or turned in assignments, or all of them. And I'm going to go ahead and click on import all of them, because that's the value of feedback, is to really give students the information that they need in order to make changes as they work. Certainly there's a time and a place for doing it at the end. Different feedback. Feedback is different from a final grade. And so you can see now what's happening. You can see now what's happening is I've got my students in there, their email. Don't mess with any of these items in row 1. It'll ruin everything basically. And so what's happening right now is it's saying, hey, what do you need to do? You need to pull in a rubric. We're looking and waiting. And so you'll see in just a minute that we'll have a button up here that will say add a Goobric. And we have our Goobric that's pulled in. And over here, you'll see there's some different options. Once you've really clicked on that stuff, it's pulling it in. Like you can add a co-teacher, that there's some options for you to do a refresh if students have added or resubmitted something. We're going to ignore those for now. Just click more, dismiss, and then we're going to attach that Goobric. And if we click on attach Goobric, it's going to pop up some options, and it's going to pull up your most recently used rubrics that you've used in Goobric. That's a long time ago. Or you can click on My Drive and find the rubric that you've just created. So I'm going to select the spreadsheet, because you can use your rubrics over and over and over for any of your assignments. So it is this one right here, right? Yeah. I think. No, that's my actual assignment. Sorry, 3-point rubric. Here we go. Select. Good thing I paid attention. And now what's happening is this. This is where it gets really, really cool. And so now that rubric is actually just about attached. But before I do that, there's a couple of things. I do want to make sure that we pay attention to this, which is make those rubrics viewable to our students, and then send an email notification. If this is within Classroom, they're going to get their work returned to them, and they're going to see that rubric there, but it can't hurt to teach them to check that email. This right here, this Goobric for students, I've seen it once, and I don't know enough about it to even speak to this, but I think there's some really great potential. Might be fun to learn with your students, so we can look into that later. So I'm going to go ahead and say click on Attach Rubric. And it even gives us that heads up that this may take some time, but we've only got 3 students here. So yay. I may have mentioned this already, and it's important to know that if you have multiple classes who have done a similar assignment, you actually have to create a spreadsheet for each class. You cannot have multiple classes put into a single spreadsheet. So if that were the case at this point, I think I would actually go make my new spreadsheet while this is actually attaching that rubric. So it took about a minute for that rubric to get attached, maybe just a little bit more. But now in front of us, we have a couple of things that weren't there before. So for example, we now have this Goobric link. If you look along the bottom of the spreadsheet, we have this new tab that says rubric scores. But I'm going to go back here to this particular place, and I'm going to now click where it says Goobric link, and it says assess document, and click on the link that's there. And this is the actual place. So once you get it set up, this is the actual place where you will provide students with that feedback and those scores in the rubric. So you can imagine if you have 30 or 60 students that you're trying to give rubric scores to, this is a very, very simple way to do that. And so here, let's say, nice. So here's Hermione's. I'm going to go ahead and say she's got a 3 for that, 2 for this, 1 for that, and terrible spelling, punctuation, because those are nonsense words mostly, it looks like. And now I'm going to go ahead and say nice try. So I can give her those comments there. And at this point, you can kind of see there's a little scroll down button here. I can click on these specific options. Obviously, you can read through those and figure out what works for your students and what you want to do or not do. And then the one that I do want to make sure you check is this one that says auto save or auto advance on submit. That will take you immediately to the next student's work. Also remember, like, you can still go in here and do all of those things that we've kind of maybe been doing already with our student writing. You can still give comments and feedback here. So don't think you can't kind of jump in here and read really carefully and give suggestions or edits in a different way, but this rubric's really nice. So I'm going to go ahead and click on submit, and then it's going to pull up the next student. The rubric will be there. I can skim through and read theirs, give them a score, and move on. So I'm back here. I'm going to give this student a 2, let's say a 1, let's say a 3, and let's say a 0. Well, I'll just say a 2. How about that? And so I've gone through each of those categories that I've created within that rubric. Dun, da, da. Yay, nice, move. I'm also emailing. Notice I have that checked, so that student will get an email with that rubric, with that feedback there. Going to the next one. And if I go back to my spreadsheet, you'll notice that that rubric is being filled in here. And if I go over here to rubric scores, I can see their rubric scores here. I can see the comments that I've left. I can actually see their assignment if I wanted to click on it. And then if I wanted like an overall score, I can just simply insert a column to the right and just do a very quick formula for summing, putting a sum. Their overall total score, their total here. So simple stuff. Going back to this, let's see, 3, let's say 2, let's say 1, let's say 2, and then submit. And so once I leave this, I can go ahead and continue to go through my student work, but I'm now all finished. And I'm just gonna go back to my spreadsheet and take a look, see how my students did. This one's got the scores there, their scores are in, awesome. One thing you may wanna see is what it looks like from the student's perspective. And so I'm gonna show you that in just 1 second. So right now I'm actually in the, this class as Willy Wonka. See, I'm Willy over here. And I want to see my actual assignment. So I'm going to click on open. I'm going to click on the assignment again, and I've turned it in because I'm now Willy Wonka, but I have turned it into my teacher. I can see the rubric that my teacher has given to me here. So it didn't say that the assignment was returned. As the teacher, I'd still have to go into classroom and click on return to the students, but their rubric is at the very bottom. And so that looks really, really simple for a student to see. It would be nice if these were highlighted a little bit darker, but you can see them, the numbers, the rankings over here as well. In addition to that, if I were to go to email to check the email as Willy Wonka, I would see that I have an email from my teacher with the information about the rubric. And that would be right here. It says rubric, here you go. Your score looks like this. So it's a nice way to give students feedback right away instead of them having to wait for you to, return the pile of papers, which sometimes takes a little bit longer than we'd like, but the work's right there. So that's it.